the ghost of Strasbourg. You ever notice how Britain has a habit of mistaking obedience for diplomacy? We keep saying we're a sovereign nation, yet every time we make a decision, some faceless judge in Strasbourg clears their throat like, "Excuse me," that violates Article 3, Section whatever. And just like that, Parliament bows. We are living under the ghost of post-war Europe, a continent that no longer exists. The European Convention on Human Rights, written in 1950, when the ink of the Second World War was still wet, has become a relic worshipped by lawyers and foreign bureaucrats who think time stands still. It was drafted for a Europe of rubble, famine, and dictatorships, not a Britain of AI, mass migration, cybercrime, and global terrorism. And yet we're expected to act as if the Cold War never ended, as if the empire never fell, as if the human race didn't upload its conscience into the cloud. That right there is the problem. The ECHR is a museum piece pretending to be law, the law that outgrew its purpose. Let's be clear, the ECHR wasn't evil, it was necessary then. After the horrors of Nazism, after Stalin's Iron Curtain, Europe needed a moral anchor, fair trial, freedom from torture, right to life, the basics, human dignity 101. But laws, like technology, must evolve, or they become malware. The ECHR is now used less to protect citizens from tyranny and more to protect tyrants from accountability. Criminals appeal to it, terror suspects hide behind it, foreign courts use it to micromanage how we run our borders, prisons, and even classrooms. It has become a shield for those who exploit our compassion, and a sword against any government brave enough to enforce consequence. When the Tories say they'll leave the ECHR, the media screams, authoritarianism, but let's call it what it is, modernization. Every institution must adapt or die. Why should law be the exception? Democracy versus diplomacy, the sovereignty paradox. You can't claim to run a democracy while letting foreign judges overrule your parliament. The ECHR gives 46 countries the right to challenge our laws, from Norway to Azerbaijan. Think about that. A ruling in Strasbourg can overrule Westminster. That means if Britain passes a law to protect our borders, and one person with a good lawyer claims it violates their ECHR right to family life, the deportation halts. A single case, a single appeal, and boom, the entire immigration system collapses like a house of cards. That isn't democracy. That's external veto power disguised as virtue. And it's not just immigration. The ECHR has been weaponized against decisions on military actions, veterans investigations, housing, climate policies, and even how we sentence criminals. It's turned the British government into a defendant in its own court, every policy dragged to Strasbourg for review by people who never voted here, never paid tax here, and wouldn't survive 5 minutes in a British council estate. This isn't human rights, it's humiliation wrapped in bureaucracy. The media's moral theatre. Of course, the liberal commentariat will shriek that leaving the ECHR is un-British, but what's truly un-British is kneeling to outdated continental authority. They'll wheel out emotional propaganda, photos of crying children, buzzwords like international law, and horror stories of dystopian futures. They'll conveniently ignore that Britain already has one of the strongest human rights traditions in the world. Magna Carta, habeas corpus, the Bill of Rights, 1689. We invented the concept before Europe could spell it, so spare us the lectures. The ECHR didn't teach Britain about liberty. We taught the world. And yet, every time we question this outdated framework, we're told we'll become like Russia. Nonsense. Russia was expelled from the ECHR after committing atrocities. Britain is leaving because it's tired of being micromanaged. The two are not the same. To compare a functioning democracy to a war criminal state is moral blackmail, nothing more. The myth of lawfare and the truth of control. What's really going on here? It's about control. The left calls it lawfare, the strategic use of law to paralyze government action. When every policy becomes a potential court case, democracy turns into litigation. You vote for change, the government passes a law, and then Some NGO in Brussels files an injunction under the ECHR, and your vote evaporates in a cloud of paperwork. It's slow-motion tyranny. You don't need a dictator when you have endless judicial review. And yes, there must be checks and balances, but they must be ours, British checks, British balances. If Parliament errs, our Supreme Court can fix it. We don't need a panel of foreign lawyers sending moral telegrams across the channel like it's 1952. The economic and social backlash. Now let's talk reality. Leaving the ECHR isn't some Brexit-style emotional tantrum. It's a strategic recalibration. Because the cost of staying shackled to outdated frameworks isn't just legal, it's social, cultural, and economic. ECHR constraints have stalled deportations of illegal migrants, increased detention costs, clogged up the courts, and eroded public faith in justice. They've created a two-tier system, one where citizens are accountable and non-citizens are untouchable. When a British veteran is dragged through endless human rights litigation for actions in a war zone, but a repeat offender can't be deported because it might violate their family life, the system has inverted morality. Compassion has mutated into self-sabotage. We've built a legal sanctuary for those who reject our laws, and a minefield for those who obey them. That is not justice. That is bureaucratic cruelty disguised as enlightenment. The historical context we never talk about. When the ECHR was founded, Britain was one of its architects. We were noble then, helping rebuild a shattered Europe, but 75 years later, we're no longer rebuilding. We're being rebuilt by courts that think national sovereignty is a barbaric relic. The irony, the convention that once protected Europe from authoritarian overreach has become an instrument of it. The EU may not officially run the ECHR, but the ideological fingerprints are the same. Technocratic centralism, emotional blackmail, and disdain for dissent. We have swapped tanks for treaties, and the occupation continues. It's time to end it. A British Bill of Rights. Let's be clear, leaving the ECHR doesn't mean scrapping human rights. It means reclaiming ownership of them. We can draft a new British Bill of Rights, modern, digital, and sovereign, one that recognises modern threats, AI surveillance, genetic data, cyber privacy, and free expression in the algorithmic age. One that protects both citizens and the integrity of the state. Because a nation without control is not compassionate, it's chaotic. A new bill could preserve the timeless principles, life, liberty, fair trial, while stripping away the parasitic legal activism that has turned justice into a subscription model for NGOs. And we can make it enforceable by British courts alone. No appeals to Strasbourg, no lectures from outsiders who've never set foot in Wolverhampton but think they know what's inhumane. The psychology of dependence. There's a deeper sickness here, a post-imperial inferiority complex. Britain, terrified of being alone, clings to European frameworks for moral validation. We fear being seen as heartless, when in truth, our generosity has been weaponized against us. It's like an adult who keeps asking their ex for permission to live. We left the EU, we talk sovereignty, but emotionally we're still begging for approval from a continent that doesn't even like us. Leaving the ECHR isn't isolationism, it's self-respect. It's the moment you stop apologizing for existing. The cultural stagnation of moralism. Our politics is drowning in performance. Every debate becomes a moral melodrama. If you leave the ECHR, you hate human rights. No, it means we believe rights must evolve, not fossilize. Moral absolutism is the death of moral progress. Britain's strength has always been its ability to reinvent itself, from empire to welfare state, from monarchy to modern democracy. Now we must reinvent our justice system, not abandon it, but upgrade it. We need fewer sermons, more solutions, less emotion, more evolution. Rebuttal to the opposition. Labour will say we're turning our back on the world. But what they call turning our back, we call facing forward. They'll say the ECHR is sacred, forgetting that every law we've ever written began as an act of rebellion. The Magna Carta rebelled against monarchy. The Bill of Rights rebelled against tyranny. The Human Rights Act rebelled against common sense. Maybe it's time for the next rebellion, one that restores power to where it belongs, the people. The Liberal Democrats will cry, but Russia left the ECHR. Yes, and Russia was expelled for war crimes. Britain would be withdrawing for reform. There's a difference between running from justice and rewriting it. And for the human rights lobby, the ones who'll clutch their pearls and cry chaos, I'll say this: chaos already reigns when citizens lose faith in their own system, when criminals laugh at deportation orders, when ordinary people feel the law protects everyone but them. That's the chaos we're already in, and it's worse than anything that could follow leaving the ECHR. What modern rights should look like. Modern Britain needs modern rights. The right to digital privacy, the right to national security, the right to protect your community from harm, the right to speak without fear of algorithmic censorship. None of these are guaranteed by the ECHR. It was built for a world of telegrams, not TikTok. If we want to stay free, our laws must keep pace with our machines. And that means taking control, not outsourcing it to a council of ghosts in Strasbourg. The future is sovereign, or it is nothing. We stand at a crossroads. One road leads to self-determination, the other to managed decline. We can either evolve into a nation that writes its own destiny, or continue pretending that the word independent means something while our laws are faxed from abroad. The world has changed. America is rewriting its laws to regulate AI. China writes new constitutional interpretations every year. Even the EU, for all its bureaucracy, updates its charters constantly. And Britain, still quoting a 75-year-old European manifesto like a sacred scroll. That's not law, that's liturgy, and we're long overdue for a reformation, reclaiming the word rights. We've let activists weaponize the word rights until it means everything and nothing. Now every inconvenience is a violation. Every border is oppression. It's time to remind people that rights exist within society, not above it. Rights are not a blank check to defy consequence. They are a covenant between the citizen and the state, between freedom and order. Britain's greatness has always rested on that balance. We must protect our compassion, but we must also defend our boundaries. The ECHR forgot that balance long ago. It's time we restore it. The moral case for national control. Some say sovereignty is selfish. I say it's sacred, because without sovereignty, morality itself collapses. How can you be responsible for the good you do if you're never allowed to make your own choices? How can a government be held accountable by voters when it's overruled by judges abroad? Moral responsibility requires freedom of action, and that means Britain must have the final say, not Strasbourg. Leaving the ECHR isn't abandoning human rights, it's reclaiming moral adulthood. Our law, our land, our legacy. So yes, I support Kemi Badenoch when she says the Tories will leave the ECHR, not because I trust politicians, but because I trust evolution. And the law must evolve, or it becomes a fossil we worship instead of a tool we wield. We are not children in Europe's moral daycare. We are the nation that drafted the principles Europe still quotes. We are Britain, and it's time to act like it. If you truly believe in justice, then you must believe in renewal. If you truly believe in freedom, then you must accept responsibility. And if you truly believe in Britain, then you must trust it to govern itself. No more waiting for permission. No more moral puppetry from abroad. Our law, our land, our legacy. That is the only way forward. A nation that cannot write its own laws does not deserve to call itself free. Not right, not left, just real.